All right. So let's see here. I'm going to share my mobile screen here. I've got my screen right in the middle here. So what I have is something on Facebook Messenger called a. So what Kaydoh does is a real estate technology company, and one of our products is called Realtors Bot right here. And in Facebook Messenger is by far one of the most popular chatbot platform, one of the most popular messaging platforms out there. So it makes sense if you were to develop a chatbot, you use a platform that has a high adoption rate, especially worldwide, right? It's not just in the United States, and it's the entire country in itself. So here we have Realtors Bot, where it allows an individual to look for properties. You can look at the look for the value of your own property. You can look for local realtors, and one of the best use cases creating a chat bot a lot of times is you don't have to overthink it. And what is happening is companies or vendors out there are going out to businesses and basically saying, look, I can take your website and I can compact it and put it in a chat bot. So I've heard other vendors use like reimagine your website. So you can imagine, 15 years ago when we just had a website that wasn't mobile responsive, vendors were going out saying, hey, let's make your website mobile responsive so that it looks nice on the mobile phone, right? So now similarly, you have this scenario where instead of just on the web, let's make your website conversational. And this is what it is. And this is a really good example of that, where in the beginning, when you get started, the chatbot introduces itself, right? It says, hi, Michael, I'm Abby, a virtual realtor assistant. I help you find homes, connect you with realtors, gives you a quick introduction, and also gives a quick instruction of how to use the application, which is swipe right to see what I can do. So here you're presented with a menu of items, just like how you would be presented if you're on a website. But because you're limited in terms of GUI, you can imagine the focus is more concentrated. So that is also an advantage. In a way, you have to be real careful on how you design the chatbot. Because if you don't do it in a concise way, you can get easily the end user can get easily distracted, or even just confused in general. So here you have a menu item, what I call finding a realtor locally. You can search for properties. You can find a value of a property. You can look. You can use a mortgage calculator. And one thing I'll point out is this platform I'm using it's called Motion AI. Motion AI is by far, in my opinion, one of the most robust platforms in terms of chatbot development. That gives you an easy way to put things together, but it also allows a developer to really leverage his or her skills to be augmented with a chatbot. You have other platforms out there, such as like ManyChats or ChatView, which are just as equally as good for their own purposes. But the Motion is more, I would say, geared towards a developer. So if you're a developer or you're wanting to really hone in on your skills and create a complex system, a system like Motion AI is really great for that. So going back here, and another thing I want to point out is a lot of times you don't have to code things up. Like, for example, this mortgage calculator, if I click on it, all it is it's using a web view and pulling up an existing website, right? So I didn't code any of this piece. This is leveraging an existing website that's already mobile friendly. So there's no need for me to write any additional code. And sometimes that gets lost in chatbot development, thinking that you need to do everything ground up. You don't. A lot of times it's just putting existing components together in this type of format where you're presented with items to do specifically. Here, I'll go through an example here of searching for a property. At this point, do you have any questions for me before I keep moving forward?
Well, I mean, the first best thing that I like to see is when you use that existing component. Was it the mortgage calculator?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, like, once again, like, I think a lot of people would say, what if we don't want the user to leave the messenger bot? What if we want them to stay there? What was behind your decision making in putting up that web view?
Well, sure. I mean, you have a web view, but you're still within the application itself. So
Mhm.
you're not clicking away from Messenger, right? And Facebook Messenger have ways where you can pass this data back to the bot itself.
So
Oh,
was this calculator? Is this something that you've created, or is this a third party one?
it's a third party.
Gotcha. And is that for example, if the user types in $250,000, 4.25% at a 15-year period, is that data that you can get, or is that data that's not accessible?
You would have to create that yourself. So it's
Okay,
not something like, because I'm using a third party calculator, that data is not going to be passed back to my bot. If
gotcha.
I wanted this to be truly integrated and I needed that information, then I would just take this in house, create this app
Mhm,
calculator um, on my own website as well. I put it on your own domain and then have the data passed back. You don't have to create this calculator within the bot itself, because you can imagine how this in itself is already friendly, right?
mhm,
I can make the changes here. Instead of 250, I can make it 400, 49. The monthly payment changes dynamically, right? And so there's no need really at this point um, to bring it in-house. And that's a constant thing that you as a chatbot developer need to ask yourself. It's like, let's not, am I reinventing the wheel? Is it going to be better through conversation, or this is great for having all of this all at once in terms of a GUI interface, right?
mhm.
And that is a decision a bot developer will need to make. And something even myself, I even struggle with that. I'm not, I'm no here, have all the great answers here. But from my experience, in terms of execution wise,
Mhm.
you want to get out the door as fast as possible, and there's existing tools out there. You want to augment it together, and some of the components you can't augment it. I'll go through some of these examples where it doesn't make sense. You can't use a third party vendor for it. You have to do it in house, or you have to truly use AI. Right, this point right here, there's no AI involved. This is a functionality or utility component right now. What you're saying
Mhm.
anymore?
Great. Yeah. I just want to see more of the demo.
Sure. And then here's let's go look for a property now. So here, what it's going to do is going to connect to a service. So I'll just do a search. I'm in San Jose area. 148. And what it's going to do at this point is it's going to connect to the MLS system here in the United States
Mhm,
and look for properties. And here it is using another service to pull up listings. And if you swipe right, you can see different properties that are for sale. And here you can see the pricing. You can see the basic dimensions of the property. You can look at the home details. And this is leveraging an existing website that I created that is complementary to this bot, where it pulls up in a traditional form, the details of the property itself, right?
mhm,
So you also want to give the user the ability to also see something that they're used to seeing, right? This is what they're
mhm,
used to seeing. If they go to
mhm,
any website in a mobile friendly, they're used to seeing this. So it's important you see in a conversational chatbot, sometimes a lot of the details, or a lot of times the details are hidden. So this is one way to hide those details, but also present it in a way where they can access it at any time. Similarly, pictures. How do when you looking for properties, you can't in a conversation, you can't show the property, all the pictures all at once, but you can give them options to go to a web view, and this is what it
mhm,
is. This is
mhm,
slice through the pictures themselves, right? And this is using a web view.
mhm,
Right. So, and at this point, I want to make sure everyone understands that we didn't download a new app, right? So, you as a chatbot developer, one of your greatest selling points to anyone that wants a chatbot is the fact that they don't have to download an app. This is an app that already exists, and most likely the end user, the consumer, already has Facebook Messenger. So, if someone were to use the app, you just tell them, "Hey, go look up this specific user or this specific chatbot business, and you'll be able to find it. You don't have to download anything, but it behaves like an app. That's the cool thing
mhm,
about that. So let's talk about some AI stuff. So let's look at this property, right? I'm looking at the one that's at 1.1 million. Here I can ask questions about the property. And here I've laced in NLP using wit.ai. Wit.ai is a good platform, especially for NLP processing. Originally was it allowed you to create bots, and it still does, but its main focus now is truly NLP, NLU in terms of natural language processing. So here I ask, I give the option for people to ask a question about the property, things that may not be too obvious. For example, just looking at the picture itself, I can't tell from the type of roofing, right? And for me as a particular home buyer, and me being a real estate investor, roofing is actually one of the important questions I always ask my realtors. So let's ask that to the bot. Say, what type of roofing does this home have? Right? I can ask that question. What the bot does is it's going to look at its engine. It's going to respond accordingly based on what the data has been obtained, and it knows that it has composition type roofing. Right? In composition, I'll scroll back here and kind of look at the home details. You can see that if you look closely in the details, that's one of the data points. I believe it should be there one here. There you go, roofing composition. You see that, the very first one?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, another thing is in terms of AI, or this is a form of frequently asked question. Is there's two sides of this. There's one side where you have to train the bot to understand this question. So the question of what type of roofing does this have is not keyword based. I mean, there's different ways to train the bot, but this one isn't keyword based. It's intent based. And what that means is it reads the entire sentence and it tries to understand what's the intent of that question, and it maps it to a specific trait or a value. And when you're training a bot, you have to train the bot to understand the type of question and also provide it a specific trait of that. So this was the intent of asking a question about the property, but what was the exact trait? Well, this is about the roofing. So the roofing has been mapped to that data field, which is the type of roofing.
Mike, could I ask a quick question here? So I think for some of the beginner bot makers, they've maybe seen API.ai and maybe I've tried to use it, or maybe they don't know about it at all. And maybe for some of the more intermediate ones, they've messed around with Bot Framework and Lewis, so they kind of understand the NLP network. But for completely new people, let's just say this looks really cool, right? But they don't know, they're not an engineer, or not yet, and they say, hey, look, how do I incorporate NLP, NLU into my chatbot? What would your advice be?
Yeah, well, first you got to ask yourself, is that required? That's the first thing you got to ask yourself, is not everything needs to be NLP required, right? A lot of times, kind of going back up here, like presenting a menu of items is a great way to get the conversation started, right? So you don't, some of the mistakes I see bot makers make is like they start out straight up without giving any direction, just say, how can I help you? And this is where you'll fail, because when you ask a open-ended question like that and hope to use NLP to try to understand who knows what type of questions are there, more often than not, you're not going to train the bot to understand the question that the end user actually types in. So the best, one of the biggest advice is make sure you do provide a set of options to guide them down a path. And NLP is great for situations where you can have a varied ways of asking a specific question or responding in a specific way. So for this specific demo here, asking a question about property, I can't take them down a predefined path. I can't. I do know that there are, in this specific bot that I train has over 40 attributes that I have to train the bot to understand. But I can't. It's not feasible to have those 40 attributes displayed in a path, right? So you basically say, hey, what's the question you have, and then you map that.
So I understand that part, but what kind of technologies or third-party integrations can people use today with their chatbots if this is something that they feel like is needed?
Yeah, so you could use Dialogflow for that, and you could use with AI, and this is what I've used, with.ai. That's a great service where it has a simple REST API that you can leverage. You can train the bot separately away from your chatbot, and then you can hook it into whatever platform you use. And some of these platforms allow that. And again, I'm speaking from my experience. Motion AI allows the ability to call out to a third-party API. So the way I can explain on a technical level briefly how this works is the way this works is the question that I put here, what type of roofing does this have? What it does is it's delivering that question through a REST API to with AI server, and then it returns back a confidence score and the entity and the trait and values that are associated with that input. And based off of that, I composed the message below. So very similarly, if you had another third party NLP engine, you would do something very similar to that.
Gotcha. Understood. Thank you.
And I believe Dialogflow already has one built in. So you would do all the training there. So you can do that all there, and then you can map those trained intents to a specific flow within your bot.
Cool. Can we go on with the demo and see what else it could do?
Yeah. So so here also, has the ability to do this, and I'll show you one other piece. So I go back up here. I'm not going to demo the home value right now, but I will demo this piece here, which is finding a local expert. So what this does, if I clicked on this, it's going to present to me a list of, I'll click on it up here. What it does is it's going to present to me a list of network of agents that people can contact directly, right? And so if you look at this, this is a presentation of existing realtors that I have loaded in a database. But if I go back up to ask a question as well, so I'll go back in and ask a question about this property, you can also segue into that same set of realtors by asking a question. And this is how you can have that um, uh, and this is how a conversation can turn, because you give them an option to go down a path, but it may not always go down that path. So in this specific question, I can say, can you connect me with local realtors, right? You can ask that question, and the bot will be intelligent enough to understand that this is a question about realtors, and it's going to leverage the existing components that has already been defined at the very up top. And here, what you saw was, if you scroll back up, it's the same information. So this is one of those strategies they can use where reusing existing components. But this is where you have rule-based, and then you merge, and you also have NLP leveraging the same stuff. So here I can ask a question. I say I want to contact Pete. Now I'm going through a lead capture process. So let's go through that process, and you'll see what this looks like. And this also integrates into other services here. And then I'll stop there in terms of the demo, because at that point we can talk about some other stuff here. So here it gives a quick introduction saying, great, excellent choice. You're gonna love Pete. So let's go ahead and set up an introduction for you. Type in your email. So I'll go ahead and say my email. And it's gonna ask me a series of, let's say, 4 questions, I believe. So I'm just gonna skip it, and we're gonna add my number. I'm looking to sell my property, right? So it's asking me, pre-qualifying me or pre-verifying me. So it says here, you're in a perfect market for that. Just a few more questions. How soon are you looking to sell? I'm going to say ASAP. So one thing you'll notice is I'm offering quick replies as well. So again, making it easier for the consumer to have these, the question above, how soon are you looking to sell? I mean, how many different ways someone can say that? There's generally buckets of options. So if you know that these are buckets that are commonly used, and present that, make it easy for the consumer to just type it, click on it versus typing it in, or give ranges, right? So this one, my house, I want to sell it over $1 million. All right, and then here's this is the last questions where it's asking, help me understand the reason why you want to sell. So I'm gonna say, having a baby. Right, I'm just gonna say I need a bigger home. So at this point, the last question is, my address. It's gonna need an address. So, right, and again, you might think, wow, this is a lot of questions, and you're right. This is a lot of questions. But get through this demo is a good example of someone's gonna have to ask those same questions as well. And if someone actually went through, and here you go. So for me, so I just got a text message on my mobile phone
Wow.
with that. So this is a demo of the bot answering these questions. But then if I go back to my mobile phone as a realtor, I can see that I got all of this information. I got Michael Leah, my email, I'm my seller, my budget, I'm having a baby, here's my address as soon as possible. So I can, email this person immediately, or if he gave me the number, I can call them. So now you're talking about, whoa, you just integrated Facebook Messenger with AI, now SMS chatbot, right? This doesn't reply back at all, but it's a way to deliver the information to your consumer very quickly.
Yeah, what I love about your bot, and we've interviewed, I think, 5 or 6 by now, and
Yeah.
your bot definitely integrates a lot of different platforms. Meaning, you're not afraid to use web pages and you use that resource. You're not afraid to use SMS text messaging. So I really like how you're playing with a lot of different platforms here.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And yes, and this is something that as I'm going out speaking at different conferences, I'm saying the same thing, is that you don't have to reinvent the wheel here, right? It's just a different interface. It's conversational. A lot of the details are hidden, but a lot of the automation aspects of it already exist. And like I said earlier, chatbot development is not a technical problem. It's not a technical challenge. Really, if you know how to, I would say a junior engineer can do this, but it does take someone senior to conversationally put this together to do that. But that's not to say you can't do it. But keep the mindset. It's not a technical challenge, and this is why um, you can have many engineers tackle this problem. And my personal opinion of why there's over 100,000 chatbots in Facebook Messenger, and where a majority of them are garbage, is because unfortunately it was given in the wrong hands without any best practices. In other words, even till this day, we don't have a standard best practice globally accepted, right? There is best practices that Facebook tells you, but it's not widely adopted. So when you didn't have a standard that was widely adopted, you had engineers just putting everything together, and a lot of times they'll forget to introduce themselves, or they'll forget that you can integrate other services, right? Because when you saw this chatbot, I can imagine you're thinking, wow, there's a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes here. And what I'm telling you, yes, it is a lot of stuff behind the scenes, but it's existing services that have augmented together to create a holistic experience. And I want to give another tip to your audience here. It's something that I see one of the biggest missteps as a chatbot developer is. I'll scroll back up. Here is this. You see, this is very key. What you just saw right here. This last component, and this is how we got Gobi, the job bot, during my time at GoHire, went viral in over 110 countries, did over 100,000 messages the first month of release. Is whenever you have a successful completion or a successful engagement, and that's something that you'll have to define as a developer, as a business owner of your chatbot. But once you define, okay, this part is successful, and for this specific example, it was successful because I answered all of these questions and the message was delivered. At this point, give them an opportunity to share it with people, right? A lot of times, chatbot developers would just end it like that. This is how you can organically get your bot viral, is where I can share this with individual people. That's great. But if I have 500 friends, if you got 2,000 people, there's no way you're going to select each of these individuals, right? So another way to leverage the ability to share this bot on your entire timeline is to share it through the web component. The web component, so any website can share a website, right? Everyone has that ability. Facebook provides that. So you just leverage that in a web view. You share your Facebook business page, which in turns is essentially sharing your chatbot on Facebook Messenger.
Mm-hmm.
One of those techniques that we were probably one of the first to use when we were the first to develop a HR chatbot in the US. So by
Wow.
posting here, this posts out to your timeline, so my entire friends would see this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's something I stress to other developers as well. And again, these things, working with other developers, especially in Motion AI community, there's things that you can expedite the process, the learning curve, especially if you have someone that's done it sometime. I do suggest bot developers find mentors, kind of speed up the learning curve
Mm-hmm.
there.
Mm-hmm.
Starting out from scratch, you'll miss some of this stuff.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. Like once again, that's another way of tying in a service that already exists and that's already there for us. We just have to use it. We just have to find a way to incorporate it.